So today we'd like to talk about creation. There's a lot going on in the first chapter of Genesis, to say the least. But one of the coolest things is something that you may not realize regarding how God created everything. And it's something that I hadn't considered until I started looking at things Hebraically, and I thought maybe you might benefit from this. But usually when we think of God creating something, it might come to mind like God actually speaking forth something and then it coming into existence. For example, this pine cone, for example, if God was to speak this into existence, he would say that, let there be pine cones, and then this pine cone would come forth. And somehow that God would be creating through an active coming forth of something that didn't exist before. Well, there's a very interesting Hebraic concept called tzimtzum, and I know it sounds like a Chinese dinner or something, but tzimtzum is actually the idea of creation kind of in reverse, as if everything existed and God simply revealed it. And what I mean by that is, obviously, if God is all in all and fills everything, to every corner of the universe, whatever that is, we can't even comprehend how expansive God is. Rather than him create something that would be separate from himself, he would have to push that out into some place beyond himself. The idea of tzimtzum comes in where God doesn't push something out beside himself. He simply withdraws his presence, leaving that secondary thing, the creation. So what that might look like is, if I was to find something else to give you an example. Alright, so let's say that this dandelion is God's presence, and for lack of better imagery, God's presence fills everything in the entire universe. And when he decides to create something, he simply withdraws his presence, leaving creation, like this beautiful tree, behind. In fact, the Hebraic concept of tzimtzum goes even further to say, if this is what's left of the dandelion from God removing his presence, God removes his presence and this dandelion is left, then all of these little particles of the dandelion now become little pieces of God's presence left in the world for us to find. And in that way, that these little, in Hebraic thinking, they're called divine sparks, are scattered throughout all of creation. And part of our job as humans is to find those divine sparks and reunite them with God. And the way that we do that is by following his commandments. His commandments tell us things to do that actually liberate those sparks from where they're hidden throughout all of creation. It's a very interesting concept, and it works on a lot of different levels, and it also challenges us to look for the godly things in everyday living. And that's one of the benefits we have in studying Torah, is that the world becomes alive from a spiritual perspective. So while this dandelion analogy may not be perfect, and it may not explain everything, obviously, about creation, I hope it helps you understand a little bit more about God's nature, and the fact that as he withdraws himself is when creation comes into existence, and that he's left pieces of himself for us to find, so to speak, in the things and the actions that we do and in the people around us. We look for those godly sparks to be able to connect with them and be able to reunite them with their maker, in a sense. It's my hope that this understanding sheds a little different light on creation and opens your thinking a little bit as to how God operates. That's one of the purposes of Torah Pie, is to take just a little slice and open up your thinking to some new dimensions. I hope this helps. Take care.